Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in this moment, whether sitting alone in your room, walking through a crowded street, or listening under the quiet breath of the night, lend me your ears, your mind, and your attention. Something extraordinary is happening, something so monumental that it will shift continents, shatter old empires, and rewrite the script of global power. What began as a regional fire in the Sahel has exploded into a global storm, and today, the smoke from that fire has drifted all the way to the Korean Peninsula, to North Korea, to the desk of Kim Jong-Un himself. In the center of this growing storm stands Burkina Faso, led by the unwavering, fearless, and unbreakable Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a young leader who refuses to bow. A man who understands that sovereignty is not a gift handed down by colonial powers. It is seized, protected, and defended by those who dare to stand. Burkina Faso today fights a brutal two-front war that would break most nations. On one front are the terrorists, the bandits, and the extremist militias who repeatedly strike villages, burn homes, destroy farms, and slaughter innocent people. These groups are not random, and they are not acting alone. They are fed, armed, and silently supported by the same forces that have kept the region unstable for decades so they could continue sucking Africa's minerals at cheap colonial prices. This is the same old colonial script: destabilize the land, weaken the people, then walk away with the stolen wealth. On the second front, Burkina Faso faces the glare and hostility of France and parts of the European Union. France is outraged because Traoré refused to be a puppet. He expelled their soldiers, ended their neo-colonial military presence, and reclaimed control over his country's destiny. This triggered fury in Paris. Now they threaten, they hiss, they posture. They issue warnings of invasion. They scream about regional stability while ignoring their own long history of destabilization. But Traoré knows one thing: if a nation wants peace, it must prepare for total, merciless war. War, however, is not poetry. War consumes iron. War consumes metal. War consumes blood, sweat, resources, and ammunition in terrifying quantities. The Burkinabe army fights nearly every day, pushing back terror cells in the forests, in the villages, in the borderlands. Their ammunition burns fast, and their rifles cannot go silent. For a nation like Burkina Faso to survive such pressure, it needs a river of ammunition that never dries. It needs endless bullets, endless shells, endless fuel for its trucks and armored vehicles. And above all, it needs protection from the sky. France's main weapon is not its rhetoric. It is its air force. If France were to invade, their first strike would come from above. They would bomb leadership centers, government buildings, communication hubs, and military bases. They would attempt to break the spine of the state in one swift, vicious blow. Traoré knows this, and that is why he has worked tirelessly to build something he calls the Iron Roof, a sky shield so strong that any foreign jet entering Burkinabe airspace would risk never returning home. For months, Burkina Faso has been strengthening its alliances with Russia and China. Armored vehicles, drones, fighter jets, surveillance systems, rifles, and artillery have poured into the country, yet Traoré is not a man who thinks small. He is not a man satisfied with temporary victories. He wants long-term transformation. He wants to ensure that no future generation of Burkinabe children wakes up under the shadow of foreign rule again. And so he has been negotiating silently, strategically, and fearlessly with new global partners. Then this week, something happened that shook observers across the world. Reports emerged from multiple trusted sources that North Korea had officially stepped into the Sahel's geopolitical arena. Kim Jong-Un, one of the most heavily sanctioned, heavily isolated, and heavily underestimated leaders on the planet, made a decision that sent shockwaves through Western intelligence agencies. North Korea offered Burkina Faso a defense package worth $120 million. Not theoretical promises, not vague words, actual heavy weaponry, ammunition, artillery, anti-air systems. fuel networks, defense engineering support, a commitment on a scale no one expected. And that is not all. Burkina Faso is now exploring a long-term, historic partnership with Pyongyang military, economic, agricultural, and industrial. When nations like Russia, China, and North Korea, all at odds with the Western Bloc, turn their eyes toward a single African country, it means the old global order is changing shape. It means Africa is no longer the forgotten pawn. It means Africa is becoming the board on which the next world order will be built. This alliance is not simply about weapons. It is about survival. It is about leverage. It is about rewriting the rules of power. North Korea wants many things the West has denied them for decades. They want food security. They want agricultural freedom. They want reliable access to the minerals needed for electronics, infrastructure, and energy. They want cement materials, limestone, manganese, minerals that the West has tried to block through sanctions. Meanwhile, Burkina Faso possesses everything North Korea needs: vast open land, fertile fields ready for mechanized farming, huge deposits of manganese, limestone, and other industrial minerals, and a political leadership unafraid to defy Western pressure. Traoré's message to North Korea is simple: come, use our land, grow your crops, take what you cultivate, access our minerals, pay us fairly, build with us, respect us. This is not charity. This is not dependency. This is a partnership between two sovereign nations united by one shared opponent, the Western regime that has built its wealth on African suffering. To grasp the magnitude of this moment, we must understand the broader battlefield. The war in the Sahel is not a local struggle. It is part of a wider global confrontation for superpower dominance. The United States still believes it leads the world. Europe still clings to the idea of its own superiority. But Russia, China, and North Korea reject this. They know the uncomfortable truth that the West never built its greatness alone. It was built on the stolen gold of the Sahel, the cheap uranium of Niger, the cobalt of Congo, the oil of Nigeria, the labor of enslaved ancestors. Without African minerals, without African land, without African labor, the West would collapse into economic darkness. China and Russia understand this deeply. That is why they have chosen not to fight the United States directly. That would be slow, costly, and dangerous. Instead, their strategy is elegant and devastating. Empower Africa, shift alliances, strengthen the nations that the West once oppressed. Build roads, bridges, railways, mines, ports, and energy networks. Pay fair prices for minerals. Create friendships based on respect, not exploitation. And when Africa rises, the Western Empire falls under its own weight. Burkina Faso is now one of the pillars of this new global strategy. If Traoré sells his manganese to Russia, China, or North Korea instead of Europe, guess who suffers? Not Burkina Faso, Europe suffers. Their industries become more expensive. Their factories slow down. Their supply chains break. Their economies shrink. This is not random. This is by design. North Korea's involvement pushes this strategy even further. They bring unmatched expertise in artillery, missiles, defense engineering, and survival under sanctions. Their knowledge is exactly what the Sahel needs to prepare for any foreign intervention. Their presence increases the deterrence factor dramatically. Every French threat now carries a risk. Every European whisper now feels weaker. Every Western calculation becomes more complicated. But this alliance goes beyond warfare. It reshapes agriculture, minerals, fuel supply, infrastructure, and economic sovereignty. North Korea needs land for food, and Burkina Faso offers immense fertile fields. North Korea needs minerals for electronics, and Burkina Faso provides them. North Korea needs partners to bypass Western sanctions, and Burkina Faso opens the door. In return, Burkina Faso receives fuel networks that bypass Western control, artillery that strengthens national defense, ammunition that never runs out, and anti-air systems that make the sky too dangerous for any foreign jet. The fuel guarantee alone is a breakthrough. The West has always used oil as a weapon. If they can choke off the fuel supply of an African country, they can cripple its economy, freeze its military, halt its trucks, shut down its generators, and force its government to kneel. But with North Korea's network, that chokehold evaporates. Trucks will continue moving, engines will continue roaring, power plants will continue running, the economy will continue breathing. The West's stranglehold is broken. And then comes the Iron Roof, the anti-air shield that will make Burkina Faso untouchable from above. France has always relied on its air force to dominate Africa. They believed the sky belonged to them. They believed no African nation could shoot down a French jet without facing catastrophic retaliation. But if North Korean systems arrive, the sky changes. The risk becomes enormous. No French general wants to explain dead pilots to the people of Paris. No Western leader wants to start a war they cannot win. The Iron Roof is more than a defense system. It is a political weapon. It tells the West, if you come, you will pay in blood. Ladies and gentlemen, understand the magnitude of this transformation. The ammunition now flows like a river. The fuel lines are secured. The sky is protected. The minerals are being traded fairly. The land is producing food. The alliances are solidifying. The colonial world order is cracking, breaking, collapsing under its own hypocrisy. For centuries, Africa was forced into chains of debt, chains of currency manipulation, chains of military occupation, chains of psychological intimidation. Those chains are now snapping. The Sahel is rising. Burkina Faso is becoming a symbol. The lions of Africa are finding their roar again. And the old wolf that once prowled the continent with arrogance is finally trembling. This is more than a military victory. This is the dawn of a new African era, an era built on sovereignty, dignity, fairness, strength, alliances, and independence. The fire in the Sahel is no longer a fire of destruction. It is a fire of rebirth, and it is lighting the path to a future where Africa no longer begs. Africa chooses. Africa leads. The shepherd has arrived. And the future belongs to those who refuse to kneel.